Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are going to get started right now.
Got to
So
let
thank you for.
give them a minute to get everybody
Okay,
in
I'll give them a
first.
minute. I'll give them a minute. So actually, we're not starting on time. We'll start in about a minute.
You know what we could do? We could introduce ourselves quickly and then you can get started on time.
It's a great idea, Amy. You want to kick us off?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you as for this webinar. I am feeling a little nostalgic because I just realized that the AOTLN has been around for almost very close to 5 years. With that, let's introduce the rest of the staff because you didn't come here to hear me talk. Jared,
Hey everybody, I'm Jared Wyma Bradley. I am our senior AOT advisor. I work on training materials and program evaluation.
Sarah,
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Hyatt and I'm an attorney and I am the Senior AOT Legislative and Policy Counsel with the implementation team.
Shanti,
Hi everyone, I'm Shanti. I'm the AOT Research Advisor on the team.
last but not least, Brooke, who's
Hey, y'all.
gonna get us started.
Yeah, I am Brooke, and I am the AOT Implementation Manager on the team. And so, welcome to February's AOTLN webinar, and thank you so much for joining us. Before I introduce Daniela, our speaker, I just want to share a couple things. First, if this is your first time joining one of our webinars, welcome. Thank you for signing up. We hold webinars every other month on the third Thursday, and are somewhat off that schedule occasionally, but they will take place on the third Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, as well as collaborator-specific web chats on the fourth Thursday of the month. And so if you were forwarded this notice and you didn't register from an AOT Learning Network email directly in your inbox, we would definitely encourage you to join the network for more events like this one. So I'll drop that join link in the chat shortly. And I am really honored to introduce today's presenter, Daniela Jimenez Chisolm. Chisholm holds a bachelor's and a law degree from Texas A&M University, and she was very recently promoted to her current position of Division Chief of the Juvenile Unit in the El Paso County Attorney's Office. So congratulations, Daniela. And then previously, she served as Senior Trial Attorney in the Mental Health Litigation Unit in the El Paso County Attorney's Office, where she represented the state of Texas in civil commitment proceedings. And then before that, Daniela worked as an attorney ad litem for AOT, and she was representing AOT participants in the commitment process. In addition to her legal work, Daniela is a dedicated trainer for local, statewide, and national mental health stakeholders, and she also serves as vice president on the board of directors for NAMI El Paso. She is deeply committed to improving the mental health system, and we're super glad to have her. So just a reminder, you can submit written questions via the chat or the Q&A throughout the webinar, but questions will be addressed at the end. And with that, Daniela, I'm going to hand it over to you and go off camera so I am not in the way.
Thank you, Brooke, so much for that kind introduction. And before I get started, I just want to first thank Treatment Advocacy Center for inviting me to present at this webinar. I had the pleasure of working with the implementation team for some time very closely, and just very grateful for the opportunity and the invitation to come and share my perspective. With that being said, Brooke gave me a wonderful introduction. I just want to share a little bit about some of those roles that I played and why I'm so excited to present this webinar today, because I have served on both sides of the law when it comes to AOT, and previous to that as well, in our civil commitment processes. So mental health is a passion of mine. I've been swimming in these waters for a majority of my legal career. But really, when AOT came into my life, it really changed who I was as an attorney, and continues to help me develop who I am and who I want to be, and how I would like to help others or offer a perspective for other attorneys to look at our role and what it could be, and not just what it should be. So, with that, how did I get into AOT? I think my story is something that may be valuable for you all to hear, because even though I've been a mental health champion for a long time now, I wasn't exactly an AOT champion. So with a little background, our El Paso AOT program has been around for about 4 years. And when the program was started, I was serving as an attorney ad litem for those individuals in our community going through the civil commitment process. And I had been a criminal defense attorney, so this was something I was very passionate about, protecting individuals' rights, making sure their voice was heard in court. But at some point, our AOT program was coming into fruition here in El Paso, and I was essentially kindly voluntold that I was going to be the ad litem for our El Paso AOT program. And to be very honest, I was not that excited about this idea, because when I had been involved in this mental health system and seen my clients return over and over again, when this program was presented to me, all I could really think about to begin with was, gosh, this seems like more and more barriers that are going to be placed on my client. And I don't know that this is going to be anything that sets them up for success. And it was kind of a hard sell to hear about a client potentially being on a commitment for a 90-day period, or having an additional commitment, maybe up to a year, or being in a program for 2 years. And with that being said, at this point, I was feeling very frustrated with the system. As many of you probably have seen, we've struggled with having our community members come into a mental health system, they get stabilized, they receive treatment, and then when they're discharged back to our communities, for a variety of reasons, they are not able or don't comply with services on a voluntary basis. And so we see the cycle continue of deterioration and then a return to the system. So going back to the beginning of our AOT program, but I wasn't exactly, I would say, on board or quite a team player in the beginning. So we had a few of our first participants that came into the program were some individuals that I had been representing for many years now as their ad litem. And so I was very familiar with them. And once I knew they were coming into the program, I just wanted to make sure that their voice was being heard, that not all the responsibility was being placed on my client. And I just wanted to assess the situation and the dynamic, because this was a completely new program for me. With that being said, it really took some growth on my part as an attorney, and also just on a personal level, to come to a point where probably it was my client's first 90 days that they were in the AOT program. And it was that point where the team was looking at whether or not the criteria was still being met for them to have a new commitment and do another 90 days, because here in El Paso, we do them in 90-day commitments. And I was ready, because I knew this was going to be my first opportunity to contest and to put up a fight, and really assert that this had been enough time for my client to be in a program. And that's when everything really shifted. I had my client, when I gave them my normal spiel of, this is what our options are, and we can go ahead and essentially fight the case. my client really made a huge shift in my perspective when they gently told me, Miss Chisholm, I don't want you to fight the case. I want to be in the program. It's really helping me. And I think, that was a really important moment for me. And important in the sense that I've always really found myself, and really pride myself in being an advocate. And I realized in that moment, I need to listen more to what's happening with this particular individual. And it dawned on me that I might be a barrier in the way of my own client and in the system of itself. And that was really kind of a tough and great moment that had. So I explored this conversation with my client more, and they really laid out for me all the different ways that this program, the AOT program, was helping them in a way that they had never been helped before. And they kind of walked me through it. It's the first time I'm having an interaction with a judge where I don't feel intimidated. I don't feel scared. I actually look forward to coming and seeing Judge Strelich, which is our AOT judge here in El Paso. I like working with my case manager, and there are some goals that I want to work on. And it's going to take more time for me to work on those goals. And everything just, that's a persona I had been carrying around just shattered in that moment. And I share this because it's really important, especially for an attorney, to really look at what we're doing when we're trying to carry out our role. And at this point, I realized that I needed to get in alignment with number one, what my client is requesting of me. And number two, to zoom out and see what is this program doing that is helping an individual that I've seen consistently over and over throughout the years to suddenly have this shift. So my curiosity was there. I was disarmed with kind of my legal armor. And at that point, I kind of went to the team and in a way just asked for a seat at the table to kind of share some concerns as to why I had been resistant. And that, with that being said, I really like to work with the stakeholders in the mental health system. But when it came down to the very end of the line, it was always my client who I was going to be representing and be there for. And so this was a really humbling moment as an attorney. And this was a moment where I had to decide, am I going to get in the way of this person doing better and becoming empowered and finding a program that finally works? Or, am I going to be jaded and try to, prevent this from happening? And so luckily, I was able to balance out these changes that were happening to me. And I went into the AOT program with a fresh set of eyes and ears, I think more importantly. And as a defense attorney, there's specific roles that you need to carry out when you're representing a client. And as on the other side, as a prosecutor, you have specific roles. And I think, as I'll get into later in just sharing my story and the different sides of the legal sides of things, is that we can expand those roles. And I think that's really important. And that's why I start with this story. As a defense attorney, I went in one way, and like I really share with people often, is AOT does not just work on the participant who's in the program. It works on every single person who is sitting at the table and involved. And I saw that right from the get-go, those first couple months that the AOT program was around. And so I made amends. I invited the program manager out for a lunch, shared my new insights and way that I was looking at the program, and then offered myself, how could I be of assistance to help this program to be successful, and removing myself as a barrier. I stayed in that role as defense attorney for a few years, and at some point, I had another epiphany, another growth spurt where I realized that I would like to help in a different capacity. And so that led to changing roles. I wasn't ready to let go of AOT. This was something that has become just a project and a program that is so meaningful to me, and I've seen it serve my community in such beautiful ways. And so if I was going to make a jump in my roles, I wanted to ensure that I could still be connected to AOT in some form. That led to coming to the El Paso County Attorney's Office, where I then was the attorney on the other side. I don't really like to refer to it as being the prosecutor, but essentially I was the attorney that was representing and carrying out any applications that were filed through the hospitals. I would be presenting those in front of the judge and responsible to make sure all the elements were met, which was an interesting shift. Obviously, I had built a really close connection with my clients, and I worked closely with the case managers. But this gave me another dimension to the AOT program to experience. And it was a smooth transition. We made sure that there was no conflicts. I didn't represent anybody that I had represented. I wouldn't be doing any applications on their behalf. And the whole team really worked together cohesively so that I could stay a part of the program and still continue to grow with the AOT team. But once I've been here on the other side in the prosecutor's role, it's been a whole nother story, a whole layers of growth that have come from it. And another way of me seeing that no matter what role we're in, and this extends, beyond attorneys, although today's webinar is about attorneys, yes, we are going to maintain our roles, but there is always room to think outside the box and expand what that role could be. And something that is really important, and from the story that I share with you, is I didn't come in as a champion of AOT. I was developed into a champion of AOT. And I think that really can convey to any person that if you're starting a program or you are having some challenges with particular stakeholders, that an AOT champion can be developed. And that's something that I feel that I'm proof of, that no matter when somebody is involved in mental health, there's a passion there. And sometimes it's just taking how to navigate that passion and bring that individual into the conversation, address their needs and concerns, and then have them be an asset and a contributing factor to an AOT program. So while I've been here as a prosecutor, it's been about a year and a half I've been the AOT prosecutor. And this is something that I'll break down for you all. What exactly does an ad litem or a defense attorney do? And what does an attorney do who's representing the petitions that are filed on behalf of the hospital or the facilities? This has been a growth area that has allowed me to now use the resources of the county attorney's office behind me to expand this role as well within the AOT program. So what I'd like to do is just take a little time to discuss and share with you all what are the duties and what would an attorney be doing on each side, and what would that look like in a practical sense. When we're talking about a participant being in an AOT program, they're going to have an attorney assigned to them, whether that's somebody, maybe it's from the public defender's office, it may be a private attorney, but either way, they're going to have legal representation throughout the entire time they're in the program. The way we have it here in El Paso is we have a private attorney. That's one attorney for all the participants in our program. We have a relatively small program here with about 20 to 22 participants. Even at the maximum when we began the program and I was serving as the attorney ad litem, we had 45, and I was the attorney for all the participants, and it was manageable. So if that's anything that anybody is considering, maybe with new programs or restructuring the way things are done, there's a way for one attorney to handle many cases because it is manageable. When somebody is on the defense side or serving as an attorney ad litem, there are very specific things and very important things that need to be considered and made sure that are being taken care of. That individual, that participant in the AOT program has certain rights that need to be protected. And it's that job of that attorney to ensure that those constitutional rights are being protected. And in addition to that, that they are advocating for their client and making sure that that client has an opportunity to make sure to share what's going on their side, and in turn really hold accountable and address to the judge any of those concerns that may be happening with a participant. And practically speaking, how it would work when I was a defense attorney I would get a list of whoever was going to be seen with the judge for what we call our roundtables, which is our weekly meetings with our AOT judge. And as soon as I got that roster, it was my job and duty to make contact and conference with every single one of my clients. As we know it goes, there are many barriers that can come up with individuals, whether it's transportation or being able to have a phone, or working hours. And so I really made myself available and flexible to make contact with my client before they were going to be seeing the judge. And I think that's very important. And when I couldn't make contact with a participant, I would notify the court and ask for either the case to be reset to have more time, because I really feel that the person needs to have contact with their attorney before they're going to be in front of a judge. And especially if the state's going to be there and there's any kind of legal process that may be going forward that day. Most of the time, I would have a phone call or video call with each of my clients, letting them know what we're set for, what kind of, are we going to have a hearing with the judge? Is it more the formal setting, or are we going in for a status? What would be great to find out from my clients is what's working and not working for them in the program. Whether it's something with coming to court, if it's something, issues with the case manager, medication. I really took down as much information as I possibly could so that I could communicate it to the proper party, whether it's the court or to the local mental health authority, and say, hey, here are some issues that arose. Could you please help me address this? And this is really important to keep in mind, is that some of the issues that come up are really manageable to be able to help a participant. It may not necessarily, and most of the time, I wasn't the one that was going to be fixing these problems, but when you have an attorney in the middle and your client is comfortable and feeling that they're being advocated for, sharing these issues, and then as the attorney, you know who to contact, and you have those good communication lines open, then a lot of problems get solved really easily. They don't even necessarily need to come to the conversation with the judge because they've already been resolved, which I think is really helpful for building rapport with not only your client, but also with the local mental health authority or whoever's providing the services to your AOT participants. I really enjoyed making these phone calls. I got to know a bit about what was going on in each client's life, which I really appreciated. They would share with me, as we built rapport, they would share with me goals that had been achieved. And really something that was a common thread that was eye-opening for me, but shouldn't have been, was how my clients at that time, perceived the legal system. And there was a lot of trauma and challenges especially when I had a new client, on telling them, hey, we're going to see the judge. This is who he is. This is what we're going to talk about. There would be some concern, some anxiety, because a lot of the previous experience that any of these AOT clients I had with the criminal or with the court system was through the criminal side. And that is tough. And having been in front of a judge that's either maybe going to put you in jail, or you haven't been able to comply with whatever terms and conditions, or even being in the courthouse itself can be very triggering and a traumatic experience if you've been through that system. And as we know, there's a lot of overlap between our mental health system and our criminal system. So that was really wonderful feedback that I obtained, and I was able to help manage that situation. That was a simple conversation, talking with our judge and also with our providers. And this is something, luckily, that they had thought out. We hold our AOT roundtable sessions at our local mental health authority, where the participant sees their provider. They meet with the caseworker. We do it in a very informal setting where the judge, yes, is wearing a robe, but we're in a conference room and it's more relaxed. So we did at certain times throughout our program, the 4 years, have to take it to the courthouse at times because of some repairs that were being done at the facility. And we did see that dramatic shift. But aside from the setting and environment that was coming up as a challenge that I was able to communicate to our AOT team was something so beautiful to have the opportunity to witness the shift in my client's perspective on the judicial system, what a judge could be like. And I'm very, very grateful and blessed to have Judge Strelitz serving with our AOT program. And he is transforming these participants' a viewpoint completely on what a judge could be. And for me, I think there hasn't been a bigger win in that sense, because that's a really big one to undo, all of that prior experience with a judge, and now showing, hey, this is somebody who cares about me. Yes, this is somebody I respect, and I am going to follow what this judge is directing me to do. But this is somebody that I can now say is looking out for me and part of a support system through this AOT program. And I think that was just so wonderful. As an attorney, you're sitting there and we're so used to being in the legal system, and we get hardened and we have this thick skin, and it was really necessary and beautiful to step back and, number one, hold accountable what our system is, and number two, say, how do I be a part of, at least in this AOT program, to shift that perspective and to offer a new experience to our community members. And so that's been something just really impactful and powerful, not only for the participants, but also with our AOT team as well. And I know Judge Strelitz could tell you this. I'll speak for him on this just briefly. I know as a judge, this has allowed for him to access different parts of maybe he wouldn't be able to do hearing other cases on his normal docket. So it just allows everybody that permission to tap into their compassion and their patience and their empathy, which is really critical when we are working with anybody in the mental health system. It's one of those things, as a lawyer, no matter what side you're on, it's kind of ingrained in us to be a particular way when we're in court or we're relating to the court system. And this program is a way for an attorney, specifically I'll speak to an attorney, not to soften in a sense that we're not going to carry out our roles, but to allow our human aspects to come out that are necessary when you're dealing with a population that really it needs our compassion. It needs for us to give access to those parts and say, I'm going to lawyer, yes, in my role, but I'm also going to allow myself to be human and those parts to come forward. And so it's been just a wonderful experience. So on the defense side, we're there to represent the participant, which is our client at that time. We're going to represent them in any court proceedings if there's going to be a new application for another outpatient commitment. So there will continue in the AOT program, and to be an advocate for your client and any kind of issues that come up. Flipping to the other side of the legal spectrum is going to be the attorney that is going to be presenting the case to the judge, going to be making sure that the legal elements are met. Depending on what state you're in, the elements are going to be a little different and the criteria is a little different, but across the board, making sure that the elements are there and then providing the information to the court so that they are able to make a decision one way or the other, whether the commitment order is going to be granted or not. And again, in this role, it can be something very simple where you show up and the facility that applied, you're the attorney just saying, going through the motions and saying your lines, and that's it, that's the conclusion, and step out. But I think what's really valuable, especially for this side of the legal system, as prosecutors, there aren't that many opportunities unless you're linked up with a criminal specialty court or something like that to be exposed to a team that is so diverse. I think that as attorneys, we kind of hover around other attorneys, and it is really necessary to get out of that comfort zone and to lend ourselves, yes, our legal expertise where it's warranted and asked for, but more so to be doing some learning. And being part of the AOT program, the legal component is necessary. We need our lawyers there to do the applications. They have to represent the client. The judge needs to be there to make a decision. But it's all of the things that happen after and before that part of the process that can be so beneficial to an attorney and specifically a prosecutor. This is where we have an opportunity to learn more about what does a case manager do? What does a therapist do? What does the chemical dependency counselor do? What does the program manager do? And get to interact with psychiatrists and nurse practitioners where we wouldn't normally have this opportunity. And I think that is something that is just really a big highlight is this is a huge opportunity for a lawyer to be involved in this program. Instead of that, instead of thinking we are just like a key component to just making that small part work, this really is an opportunity for so much growth and knowledge to come through that we wouldn't normally have access to. And so I don't know how many lawyers are on the webinar today, but I would highly encourage you that and we're never going to have the time, right? We have to create the time in order to be parts of these programs and to expose ourselves to new environments and experiences. This would be the one to say, yes, I'm going to invest more time, even if all I'm doing is just listening to the different perspectives that are happening in the room and allowing that to wash over me to see what kind of changes and development come personally and through my legal role. So that's an offering that for the lawyers that are here, even really a stepping up and say, we can do better than just our very small part. A bit of a call to action for our attorneys out there. And if you have an attorney part of your program that's a champion, please support them and encourage them to continue being involved in the AOT program. I am more than happy to share ideas and resources that have come up through the development as I've been on both sides. But it is something that is just really crucial for our attorneys who are out there. So all the non-attorneys, please keep cheering on your attorneys and encourage them to continue to stay connected with the AOT program. So aside from just what does each side do, it's important to, I think, identify what are some barriers that come up on each side of the law. As a defense attorney, a common barrier is when somebody indicates to you, a client indicates, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, I don't want anything, I'm done. The first and simple step, of course, is you need to follow through with what your client is directing you to do. However, there's nothing preventing you from asking the why. Why don't you want to be here? What's not working? Why is it not something that, is you're finding that you want to be a part of anymore? And with that, you're also guiding and letting them know what you as your attorney can do for them and what are the rights that they have. But I think that's valuable to say why. Again, a lot of the problems that I was presented with as an attorney ad litem were very solvable. And all I asked for was simply, would you allow me a little time to see if I could help to solve these problems and come back and see where we're at, if they're solved or not solved, and if this is something that is still we're going to contest or not. With that, a lot of problems were easily solved, and the participant found value in the program. And it was a different kind of conversation we're having at that point. On the other side of the equation, as the attorney for the state, it's really having to make sure that this is a true legal process, and we are doing everything we can when we're presenting a case that meets the legal standard. And when we go in front of the judge, the court, the participant and their attorney, it is prepared and it is not something that's done halfway. And I think it's really important that as attorneys, we really do it thoroughly. Even when we're having more of an informal setting, or we may have really great collaboration with our stakeholders, we have to make sure that we are carrying out and doing everything that's required in our lane so that this case is presented properly. So those are kind of some things to consider when looking at each side of the equation when it comes to some barriers or some difficulties that, again, these are not things that can be overcome. They're just common things that pop up and really could present as issues, but don't have to present as issues. As prosecutors, I know that our number one thing is, we're looking at public safety, we're looking at how the community be affected, and we're balancing that obviously with the person's individual rights and the success of what we're seeing in the program. And so this is a really great opportunity to set all of these different elements on the table in your role as an attorney and not weigh something that has classically been given to us as the most important factor, and allow ourselves to start to include different factors into our analysis of what we're going to do on either side of the case. This the success of these programs to some degree really does rely on a collaborative effort with our partners, and it doesn't have to take away from the role that we are carrying out or need to carry out. So again, these are what I'm presenting to you right now are the basics. This is what has to be carried out in order for the process to be there. What I'd like to offer now is an expanded version of what these roles could look like. And I think I'll really want to be heavily weighted on, it doesn't really necessarily have to be if you're the ad litem or you're the prosecutor, just an attorney in its own role on its own is a very powerful role, right? We have as it's the same way that we look at a judge. There's an inherent respect for somebody when they're wearing the robe. Attorneys have, if nothing else, there's knowledge there, and there's a lot of connections and a lot of things that can be done easily from simply picking up the phone call and speaking with somebody, reaching out, that may unfortunately take other roles, a long time to get through all of the tape and be able to have that same result. So when we're looking at expanding our roles and we see what's going on with our program, and as a program, an AOT program develops, inevitably you're going to run into barriers, whether it's going to be funding issues, or maybe there's difficulty hiring personnel or keeping caseworkers. Maybe we need to look at different styles of therapists to bring in. Everybody at the table has an opportunity to offer their expertise and also their creativity. So on one hand, what some of the things that I've offered as a role for an attorney, and either attorney can do it, is some legal training. And this is just so that there is a clearer understanding of how the legal process works. Because sometimes a lot of the miscommunication or the issues come up because there's not just this understanding from everybody's side what is really required from the law to be able to carry out this process. So a lot of ideas I had was, let me provide some legal education on what exactly is our statute, what exactly are we talking about here, and that seemed to be really well received by the other players in our AOT program. And in turn with that is being educated by the other partners in the room as well. It kind of got the conversation going of what can we learn from each other. So yes, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my role, and I'd also like to start adding things into the pot that are going to grow this program and make it just flourish more from the expertise that I can offer. Another really great thing that attorneys can do is they can make those connections really quickly. If it's talking to, you have, for example, maybe you're building a program and you have an attorney who's interested, but you don't have a judge, or you don't have an attorney who's willing to represent the participants. Lawyers are really good, especially with small legal communities. There's bar associations that most attorneys are participating in, to think about who could be somebody that would be appropriate and could at least begin in the program, who maybe has some of those traits that would be fitting for an AOT program, that would be willing to do this. And picking up the phone and calling that person and saying, hey, I'm involved in this program. It's been great. It's been pretty cool. I've got to do these kinds of things. Would you consider talking with the team that's developing it? Or we've lost an attorney, would you step in and do this? And I think that can be really helpful to make those connections happen faster, rather than how long it would take to try to link up with, well, who would I call and where would I go to? That can be a really beneficial addition to your AOT team as a lawyer. I think the third one that's been really exciting that I'd like to share with you all, and I've been sharing a bit about with different presentations, is that oftentimes, and if you're in this position right now, whether you're an attorney or just any member of an AOT team, where you're hitting some barriers that are becoming difficult, whether it's what do we do next, and how do we help? What I'm offering is that sometimes in those moments of really, really strain and difficult time frames, that's when the beauty can really, and the creativity can really bloom. I've shared with you that we started on a grant, and at some point the grant ran out and we had to figure out, how is this program going to sustain and how can we grow the program at this point? And it was really an uphill battle, of what do we do next? And it really was almost inviting to feel like we're just going to give up on this program. It's just too hard. But with enough people coming together, or even just one person who's committed to the cause, you can find a way out. You can find a way to solve this problem. And I'll share with you at some point, I think it was probably about a year and a half ago, our program was going through some really difficult growing and shrinking phases. And a lot of it came down to an element that we have to have when it comes to our AOT programs is going to be, we need psychiatrists. We need those certificates of medical examination, those evaluations filed. And we ran into a period where we lost a psychiatrist. We couldn't find anybody else. And so the brainstorming happened. I happened to meet a psychiatrist at our medical school. I was kind of venting about the problem, and she looks at me and says, you need people, I have people. And we paired up through our local medical school for those residents that were in the psychiatry residency program. And we developed a partnership with our local mental health authority, our AOT stakeholders, and our medical school, that we would have a set rotation for a resident to come in for 6 months and participate in our AOT program. It would be part of their curriculum. They would provide medication management. They would do one of the certificates of medical examination, and they would serve as a consultant to our AOT judge. And it has been phenomenal. Not only did it address our need for a psychiatrist, not only did it reduce our costs and what we were needing to do to pay those psychiatrists, we began this beautiful partnership where we had a voice at the table, a clinical voice at the table that we could just ask all kinds of questions to and better educate ourselves. The better I understand what's happening on the clinical side, the better I can improve my skills as an attorney of how to approach whether it's a particular participant or a particular style of case. And the judge he really morphed and became even just better at what he was already doing such a wonderful job by having this collaboration. And in turn, of course, we have the experience that's being provided to the resident. So this is just one example of all the different things that can come when there's adversity and it seems like there's no way to get out of this. But I just want to share with you that after some struggle, some creativity came through, and there are many, many ways to bring in different stakeholders and partners into your AOT program. And I encourage the lawyers who are here to be that voice, to take charge and lead these efforts. And for any of the other AOT team members that are on the call as well, that we lawyers are here, and there's lawyers out here that care and do want to provide this additional expertise and creativity and compassion that maybe it hasn't seemed like in the past. So I just want to wrap up with a few items as far as things that you can look for resources. We have the upcoming symposium with the Treatment Advocacy Center in Maryland next month. I would encourage anybody and everybody to go up to the symposium. It's wonderful. If you're interested in learning more about what I'm talking about with the medical school, pairing up with the AOT program, I'll be there with the psychiatrist that we started the program together. And also with we have a judicial commission here in Texas. We're going to have the executive director there to see how this could be rolled out on a statewide level. And also for any folks that are here from Texas, we have a Texas AOT coalition that meets every 2 months. It's for anybody that's beginning a program, has a program, a longstanding program, or maybe even just thinking about a program, with resources, form banks, a mentorship program. We work on legislative proposals. So if that's something that's of interest to you, that was just dropped in the chat by Brooke. And this is obviously a topic, if you couldn't tell, I'm very passionate about. Time flew by with my time here with you today. I want to just open it up for some questions. And the final thought is, remember, champions can be built, and they're out there. They're waiting to be found. And with some patience and some care and some encouragement, you may find that your lawyers and your attorneys could be those champions for your AOT program. And I'm more than happy to reach out and talk with anybody that may be interested, especially for the lawyers out there. With that, I'll turn it over if there's any questions in the chat. I'd love to see what you all have.
Thank you so much, Daniela. That was excellent. I do have some questions for you.
Right.
I'm gonna go in order. So Jennifer is asking how many of your clients with serious mental illness have anosognosia, and does the AOT program and the court recognize the prevalence and importance of anosognosia? And she shares that she's a psychiatrist and does competency evaluations and has found that about 90% of those have anosognosia. You may not know exact numbers for that, but yeah.
So I don't have exact numbers, but we do have a good portion of our AOT participants that do have anosognosia. And luckily, because of the prior AOT symposium a few years back, our AOT team was there and got to learn about anosognosia from Dr. Amador, and able to implement that into our AOT program. Because I think otherwise, without that education, I don't think we would have known how to handle the cases quite the same. And it's been very important in the way that we work with our participants and our lawyers specifically. That's something that the education on that was very critical for our team.
Thank you, Daniela. Jennifer followed up and said, bravo, Dr. Amador is her guru.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful speaker, wonderful person.
The next question is from Doris, and they're asking, or they say that in the state of Texas, participants don't have access to levels of care via residential treatment, and that they lived in Texas and had to move their son out of state, and wanted to ask if you thought that if patients are offered affordable residential treatment and then coupled that with AOT once discharged, would there be better success in AOT in Texas?
I think coupling any kind of services together are going to definitely provide for more success. I know that again, we've got to tackle many different layers of an individual and kind of untangle those. And from what I had in the El Paso AOT program, when we were able to have a chemical dependency counselor in our program, it was extremely beneficial. And at some point, we did not have that funding and availability for, and we had to start looking at alternatives for what could be possible for our program. But anytime there's a way to combine or link programs, I think it can be extremely beneficial for a person.
Thank you. And I actually have a follow-up question from that question, which is, I know this is probably not really in the attorney wheelhouse, but when you were working as an ad litem, did you have any role in supporting the program with housing for participants and housing options, stuff like that?
Absolutely. So what this was more when I came to the county attorney's office because I now had access to more resources. But really what it did is I made it a point to create a close connection with our local mental health authority to figure out because housing is one of the biggest, problems that we saw, what programs are out there. And if we don't have it in El Paso, how do we get it there? And, that's something that was wonderful to develop because there was just recently a program that began by our local mental health authority that had not been previously there, had been revamped, and we're able to utilize it now in our AOT program. So it is definitely when you are working in the AOT program, there's going to be things that highlight that are general issues. And I think that the great way is to see what other people are doing. And do we have one of those here? If not, how do we get one here? That answer
Thank
your
you.
question more or less, Brooke?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so Jerry is asking if you could explain ways that engagement with family members or other care supporters has benefited your clients.
Absolutely. So outside of the role that I do at the county attorney's office, I work very closely with NAMI El Paso. I'm on their board, and once I got involved and learned more about their services, that's something that I've asked to be, implemented or offered through our caseworkers, or at least connected up. There's the balance of whether a participant is willing to have their family to be present and engage. But if they are, the judge has really brought that into essentially the healing process as well, and invited those family members to be part of the discussion and just seeing the dynamic because oftentimes, this is a new environment for the family as well. And I think it's very important for that to be shared with family members and the kind of placing some of those follow-up things from the judge to tell the participant to do and relieving the family member from having to be that voice of saying, hey, you need to do blah, blah, blah. It's coming from the judge saying, hey, remember that treatment plan, remember this is what you had signed off to do and what we've been talking about. And that allows for that to free the family member up in that sense of having to take on that role and placing it with the judge or with the appropriate figure.
That's huge. Yeah. Um, Betsy is asking if medical residents can testify or sign CMEs in Texas, which I'm guessing are
The
medical
certificate,
evaluations.
yes. So
Yes.
it's not going to be just our regular medical student. Here in Texas, we have to have one psychiatrist fill out one of the two CMEs. But we just had some clarity with some case law that's come through that a resident in a psychiatry program is a psychiatrist. So we never had a formal definition of who is a psychiatrist, and we got some clarity. So we would have not a medical student, but the next level up once they finish their medical school program and they choose a residency, and a psychiatric resident can do those evaluations.
Thank you, Daniela. And I just want to bring everyone's attention to a question in the chat that Amy answered, or sorry, a question in the Q&A that Amy answered, which someone was asking what anosognosia is. And Amy did include a link to kind of a more in-depth description of anosognosia, but basically I just wanted to share that anosognosia is lack of insight. And so when someone has been diagnosed with a severe mental illness, but does not believe that they are ill.
And if you ever have the opportunity to, Dr. Amador has a wonderful book. He presents, he's now, I believe, a part of the Treatment Advocacy Center team. I believe there's a podcast as well. I would just highly encourage, no matter what role you have, whether it's family member or treatment provider, lawyer, to get linked up and hear some of his material because it was really beneficial.
Thank you, Daniela. Jennifer is asking if you ever have experience with AOT being run out of a different Texas probate court than the county's probate court that handles general MI, I'm guessing mental illness proceedings.
Not sure I'm too clear on the question. So I guess like I can describe how it is, like the judge we have for AOT has his docket is not just the mental health cases and the AOT program. He is a regular probate court judge. This is just an additional docket on his what he normally does. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but if not, I can try and clarify.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you have a chance to add more information in the chat, that would be awesome, but no worries if not. Okay. Well, that's the last question I'm seeing, but I could have missed one. Either way, I am going to do a final call. So if you have questions, comments, for Daniela, please speak now. Okay, Jennifer has clarified. So Dallas County has three probate courts. Probate court three is the mental illness one.
Okay.
The judge in probate three is not available. Would you recommend that they approach one or two?
Sure. Yes. We have two probate courts here in El Paso, and then one probate court has a referee, and that's what Judge Strelitz is. I'm using the wrong terminology. I hope the judge is not on the call. It's not a referee, but he's an associate probate judge, and so he's the one that takes the docket. But yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, y'all, last call for questions.
Well, I just want to share some comments so Daniela won't get a chance to see those. So Jennifer says, thank you for all you are doing. We need you in every county across the U.S. And
Very kind.
wonderful talk. Always a joy to listen to Daniela.
Thank you.
And so
Very kind. Thank you. Thank you all. This is I feel passionate about the topic. It's something I'm very happy to share my knowledge and more so just my experience as time goes on. And thank you again to the TAC team for having me and continuing to keep me engaged with AOT and what's happening around the country, around Texas. I'm just very grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Daniela. You got another comment that there's hope for Texas with you.
All right.
No offense to Texas.
Don't give up on us lawyers just yet. We just need some developing. We need some developing, and we can be some great advocates too. So just keep us in mind.
Well, thank you so much again, Daniela, and thank you everyone for joining. This was recorded, so you all will get an email sometime next week with the link, and you are welcome to share it with anyone you would like.
Thank you all.